there, I am excited about this topic today. I find propaganda fascinating, and I especially like to try to figure out what is going on behind the scenes when we're seeing messaging like this. So this content that we're going to look at today is not new. In fact, we wrote about this on our blog in July 2015, so 3.5 years ago. And this clip that we're going to be looking at and analyzing was produced by Nebraska Loves Public Schools. Now, as you know, this organization is the media arm of the groups who are trying to make sure the education options are suppressed and kept out of Nebraska. It's funded by the Sherwood Foundation. And in this video, we have UNO adjunct professor Ron Azule explaining what happens when a charter school arrives in the community. Listen closely.
There are many instances in which an individual or private entity applies for a charter to the state to fix a certain part of the community's public education. If and when they get approved, they then go on the process of marketing it to that community in which they propose the charter. And it is marketed as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It's marketed as that golden ticket that you would be a fool not to take advantage of based on the demographics and the data that is presented from the public schools in which you are. And what happens with that is that the community itself doesn't know how to talk about the new thing that is coming into their neighborhood. It doesn't know how to ask questions about it. It doesn't even know how to comprehend the amount of marketing that is bombarded to that community and through that private contractor. They're told what to do, and they're told that if they don't take advantage of it, they deserve what it is that they have in their public education.
All right, we've got a lot to unpack there. Let's start with the assertions that a community doesn't even know how to talk about this new thing, this new school. They don't know how to ask questions about it. They don't know how to comprehend the amount of marketing that they're being bombarded by. Let's look at this. Okay, so do parents know anything about schools? Yeah, parents do know a lot about schools, and specifically they know about how their kids do in schools. So one parent's experience with the neighborhood school is probably not the same as other parents' experiences. And I think what we see a lot of times with these top-down kinds of messages is that the school is a certain thing and it's the same for everybody and it's great for everybody and all means all of that. Well, even though a school may be treating all the students the same, that doesn't mean all students are responding well to it, because kids are all different and they thrive in different kinds of environments. Therefore, the parents are very important when it comes to making sure kids succeed. Parents are the ones who can see at night, if a child is understanding the homework, if there's bullying going on, if a child is dragging his feet in the morning because he doesn't want to go to school. All those things are really important, and parents are the ones who really get that stuff. They have a few kids, maybe one child, maybe two, however many kids they have to worry about. A public school in a neighborhood has hundreds of kids. Who's going to have a better insight into how a child is responding? Parents know which questions to ask, that is for sure. And a charter school is not some mysterious thing, contrary to what Ron Azule is saying here. It's a public school. It's publicly funded. It's open to anybody who wants to go. It's very, very familiar to anybody who's ever been to a public school. Now, the allegation about the amount of marketing is very interesting. So Ron Azule said that the community doesn't even know how to comprehend the amount of marketing that is bombarded to that community and through the private contractor. So this is coming from an organization whose sole purpose is to market K-12 education. I don't know if you've seen the ads around town, the billboards, the trailers before movies, the hats, the t-shirts, but Nebraska Loves Public Schools marketing is everywhere. I have never seen anything like it before. I've lived in several different states, and I've seen a few charter school ads. It is nothing compared to what I have seen coming out of Nebraska Loves Public Schools. He seems to make it sound like if a new charter school comes in, some kids are going to be told that they have to go to that charter school. Now, we currently in Nebraska have a system wherein every child in the state is zoned for a specific district public school. Now, some kids opt out of that by being homeschooled or going to private school. Those are great options for people who have the time and money to do that. Most people don't. So we currently are told where our kids can go to school. Now, in Nebraska, we do have open enrollment, which is good. That means that if there's a district public school that you would rather have your child go to, you can apply for a spot in that school. And it's even true district to district. If you're willing to drive to a different city to take your child to school every day, and there is a spot available and they say that you can come, you can do that. Unfortunately, we're in a situation in Nebraska where even that option is closing for many kids. The LPS school board just recently voted to close enrollment for East High School and Lincoln High School. So if you were hoping to get your child into one of those schools, that option is no longer available. And that's the case with some schools in Omaha and Millard from year to year also. So charter schools would add extra options. No one is told that they have to go to a charter school. It is simply an option. So again, in this piece, things are flipped upside down. We currently are told where our kids need to go. Charter school doesn't tell you you have to do anything. It is simply one more option that you can use to make sure that your child gets what he or she needs. One of the funniest parts about this, I think, is when Azule says that the community cannot comprehend the amount of marketing that is bombarded to that community. We are currently bombarded with marketing from Nebraska Loves Public Schools, and it's really interesting because what they're doing is advertising a monopoly. Why would a monopoly need to advertise at all? There's no competition. This is something, the public school system in Nebraska is something that taxpayers already have and already use and have been using for many, many years. Why the huge, expensive marketing campaign? I'll just leave that hanging. So I don't know if Ron Azule has actually lived in a community where a new charter school has come in, but I have. Before moving to Nebraska, our family lived in an area of Colorado where a new charter school was coming in at about the rate of one per year. And so I'm pretty familiar with what that process looked like. So normally I would hear about a new charter school either from other parents or from the newspaper. And then if I was interested, I would get in touch with the school. So if the school had a website, I would check out the website. Even if it did have a website, I would often call and ask some questions because remember, parents do know how to ask questions. And some of the questions that I would ask would be really basic things. What grade levels do you offer? What are the class sizes going to be like? Will the students wear uniforms? What kind of curriculum are you going to use? And a side note here with the curriculum, in places where parents have options that they all can afford, people really get into what kind of curriculum the different schools offer. I've heard parents at the playground sitting there and talking about the differences between Singapore math and Saxon math. And these are not professional educators. These are just moms who know that they have choices. When you have choices, you research your options. And so parents become much more involved. So anyway, that was one of the questions. What curriculum will you use? Maybe what foreign languages will your school offer? What sports will be offered? What are going to be the school hours? Does the school have a focus? So I'll explain a little bit more about that too. A lot of charter schools have a particular focus instead of just being a general school. So maybe it's a language immersion kind of focus. Maybe it's STEM or fine arts or college prep. Some charter schools are focused on serving specific special needs. There are charter schools that are designed specifically for children on the autism spectrum, for example, or for the deaf and hearing impaired. So that's what I mean when I ask about if the school has a focus. And then, the question we all dreaded was, how long is the waiting list? And, by the time most parents had heard about it and called and gotten the information, there was usually quite a waiting list. Sometimes 1,000 kids for 400 slots. And going back to the marketing, I think part of the reason I never saw a whole lot of marketing from charter schools is because why would they? Why would they spend their precious dollars? And in most places, charter schools get less money per student than the district schools. Why would they use their money on marketing when if you're getting more and more people interested, you're just going to have a longer waiting list? That doesn't really make sense. Now, as I talk about these questions that parents ask, I just want to reemphasize parents are very good at making informed decisions for their children. We make decisions about which dentists or pediatricians to use, and we don't have to be assigned, based on where we live, to a certain doctor. And, I don't hear anybody running around saying kids aren't going to get good health care unless we assign them to certain doctors. No, that doesn't really make sense, does it? And it doesn't make sense with education either. We are not assigned certain grocery stores to shop at or clothing stores, and yet somehow our kids get clothed and fed just fine. And it's the same thing with schools. Parents can handle this. Now, what do we do when we come across this kind of propaganda? Well, one of the first things that I like to do is figure out what's behind it. What is it that the producers of this message want me to come away with? And I think with this piece, they probably want me to come away with the idea that charter schools are scary and bad, that they're coming in to boss people around and force people to do things. So again, I think this is rather funny that a monopoly is telling us that a new option is scary. Let's take another kind of example to help us understand this a little better. Let's say that there's only one grocery store chain in town. This grocery store chain can get away with whatever prices it wants to because the only other option is for people to drive to a different city to get groceries, and who has the time or the gas money to do that? So they are sitting pretty, and they're really enjoying this position of being the only grocery chain in town. But if a new grocery store comes in, things are going to start changing immediately. First of all, the original grocery chain is probably going to fight this in the city council. They're going to come up with some reason why it's not good for people to have a new grocery store, and they'll come up with all kinds of reasons why it would not be smart for the city to let in another grocery store. But if it makes it in, then here are some of the things we'll probably see pretty soon. First of all, we'll probably see lower prices almost immediately. Consumers are very good at getting the best deal for themselves. They have a lot of things that they need to pay for, and if they can cut costs on groceries, then they'll have more money for other things like taking care of the furnace, which is on its last legs, or getting clothes, or if they're in better shape, maybe going on a trip. So the customers are going to go find good prices. They're also going to really look for good customer service. Another thing you might see soon is the availability of products that weren't available before. So if the original grocery chain didn't have let's say, any organic products, and the new one does, you can bet that pretty soon they're going to stock their shelves with some organic products. So you're going to see more things available, you're going to see lower costs, you're going to see better customer service, and all of those things are coming because there's some more competition. You'll also see stores try to kind of carve out a niche for themselves. One store might advertise itself as the store with the lowest prices. One might try to advertise itself as the one with the most ethnic foods. One might try to focus on fresh produce that's locally grown. I don't know, but we see that in places with school choice, that you get, first of all, you get more for your education dollars. You get diverse choices. And diverse choices in education are so important because we have all kinds of learners. Even within the same families, you may have kids who really need different things. There was a school board member, she's actually a current school board member for LPS. She had kids at different schools in high school. One was a private school, one was a public school, because those were the best fits for her kids. That is so true in most families. Kids are not the same and they need different things. Now, if you're well off, you can afford to send your child to private school. If you're not, you're stuck with what you have, whether or not it fits your children well. So what public charter schools do is they bring that kind of flexibility, those kinds of options to everybody because they are publicly funded schools, just like the current public schools that we have. Now, I think, I could be wrong here, but I think there's an element of fear in this message that we're getting from Nebraska Loves Public Schools. I think they're trying to make us fear charter schools. Now, having had children enrolled in charter schools and lived in communities with charter schools, I know that there's nothing to fear from more kinds of public schools. In fact, it's something that I rather enjoy because it lifts the standards at all of the schools. That said, there is some fear of public charter schools, but it's not from parents. I don't even really think it's from teachers, because I know lots of teachers who love and prefer and would only work at charter schools because they are given more flexibility, more autonomy. The fear is from the monopoly in Nebraska, and I think it's pretty clear why the monopoly would fear competition. They haven't had to deal with that at all, and why would they want to? Why would the only grocery store chain in town want another grocery store to come in and start competing with them? Of course they wouldn't. And that's where this propaganda is coming from. The fear that they're feeling, they want you to feel it. But there's no reason to fear it. You have choices in all areas of your life. There is no reason why you should fear more choices in education. Nobody fears choosing a college, right? We have hundreds, thousands of universities to choose from, and that's not a scary thing. That's an exciting thing. And it's also exciting if you can choose where your fourth grader goes to school. It's also exciting if you can choose what kind of school. If you want your child to go to a college prep school or more of a vocational school, whatever you want. With more choice, you are more likely to find just what you're looking for. Well, thank you very much for tuning in, and don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. We have our YouTube channel that you can subscribe to, and we've also got our podcast. Well, we look forward to a new discussion soon. You take care.